So that takes us on to the next slide where we talk about carrier testing. So this is the test that's offered when a mutation has been found in that index family member and other relatives are interested in learning whether they've inherited that. So if you look at the left side of this slide, this test is looking only for one specific mutation. It's a quicker test. The result is clear. If that mutation is found, that's a positive result. And it means that that person will have discussion about having higher risk to develop cancer and specific recommendations for screening and risk reduction. If that mutation is not found, then it's a true negative result, and that person's risk for cancer would be the same as people in the general population. I'm going to skip over the slide that talks about the actual risks that are associated with BRCA1 and 2 mutations, but the important factor there is that the breast cancer risk for a woman who's born with a BRCA1 or 2 mutation is about 4 to 6 times higher than it is in the general population. And the ovarian cancer risk may be actually 10 to 20 times higher. But none of those cancer risks are 100%. And unfortunately, there's no way to predict what type of cancer a person might get, at what age, or whether they'll get cancer at all. It is important to know that if a woman is identified with a BRCA1 or BRCA2 mutation, then the next steps will depend on things like her age, her general health, what options for screening and risk reduction are available to her locally, what are her personal preferences and choices. But they may include things like increased breast screening, consideration of surgery to remove the ovaries and fallopian tubes to try to prevent having that type of cancer, the possibility, some women consider removing their breasts, mastectomy to reduce breast cancer risk. But this is really important information that each person would review with their own doctor, their own healthcare providers, when genetic test results are provided. There's one slide that summarizes the cancer risks that go with Lynch syndrome, again, because that's what's going to direct what kind of cancer screening somebody would have if they're found to carry a mutation in one of the genes related to Lynch syndrome. That screening obviously focuses on having a high risk for colon cancer, so starting colonoscopies at an early age and doing them more often. Because there's a risk of cancer of the uterus and limited screening, and a risk of ovarian cancer, those women may also have advice to consider having a hysterectomy with including removal of the ovaries. So with that background and just about to finish up, some of the issues that people think about when considering genetic testing. The slide that's included is by no means a complete list, but highlights a few issues, and the importance of specific issues is going to be different for each person. But things like the fact that receiving a true positive or a true negative result can actually clarify cancer risks. It can provide direction for extra screening or prevention for the person whose result it is or for people in their family. But it's important to know that many results are uninformative and don't give that kind of clarity. We know that sometimes people find a positive result gives a sense of relief. And sometimes people who get a negative result actually feel guilty about that. So the emotions that may come with a result sometimes aren't what we expect. The number of issues that can be related are a big part of the reason why genetic counseling is always a part of genetic testing, so that people have a chance to think about issues like this before they have any testing, to think about what might be important in their own family. So just to summarize with a few key points, the idea that most cancer is not hereditary. That's true for ovarian cancer, it's true for breast cancer, it's true for colon cancer, it's true for all kinds of cancer. It's important that we look at either side of the family history when we're looking for patterns of hereditary cancer. The idea that genetic testing usually starts with a blood sample from a person who's had cancer as that index. The idea that genetic testing results they can be predictive, but they are not prophetic. They suggest that the chances of specific kinds of cancer are higher than usual or are the same as others, but they're no guarantees. And the idea that for people who do have positive genetic testing results, know that they have higher risks for specific kinds of cancer, there are things available to try to reduce that risk, to try to find those cancers earlier. So if this is something you're looking for more information, we'd suggest talking with your family doctor, with your oncologist, with another specialist. They may refer you to, or you may make contact with your local genetics clinic or cancer center to find out how the process works where you live. The Canadian Association of Genetic Counselors has a website that provides links to the genetics clinics in communities across Canada. And of course, Ovarian Cancer Canada is a really good source. Their website is a really good source of information about ovarian cancer in general and information about hereditary ovarian cancer also. So I'm ready to take questions. I think we have about 15 minutes left and would be happy to hear from anybody who might have questions.
Can we open the lines, please?
Certainly. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we'll begin the question and answer session. As a reminder, if you do have a question, please press the star followed by the 1 on your touch-tone phone. If you'd like to withdraw your question, please press the star followed by the 2. And if you're using speaker equipment, please lift the handset before making a selection. One moment, please, for the first question. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, if you do have a question, please press the star followed by the 1.
I have a question, but it's more when somebody gets a positive result. Do you sometimes get, some questions also, because we hear that sometimes insurance companies might not insure people who are, get positive results?
Yeah, that's an important question, Iris. Thanks. It's the possible impact on insurance is one of those things that's important to think about and to talk about way before you ever get a positive result. It is something that, well, let me take a step back. We know that in Canada we all have access to our public health insurance, and that's not going to change based on genetic test results. That's where we're different than the United States, fortunately. But there is a possibility that life insurance or disability insurance, those kinds of things, might be affected if somebody knew that they carried a gene that put them at much higher risk for specific kinds of cancer or for any other disease for that matter. That's how the insurance company works. If you have a higher risk for a specific condition, then they need to charge higher insurance premiums in order to cover the payments that they may need to make. So in Canada, in fact, there's been lots of concern that this might be an issue and not a lot of actual experience of it being a problem for people. But we do know that some people, young people in particular, who aren't established in careers, may not have insurance in place yet, may decide that they want to wait to have genetic testing done until they have some of those things in place, rather than knowing that information before they were ever to apply for life insurance for the first time.
Thank you.
I realize that I covered lots of information, and people may think of questions after the fact, and I know that Iris is happy to receive those questions and send them on to me if that would be helpful to anybody who has things that come up